Cherie, and today we are here to discuss Skulduggery Pleasant Deathbringer, the sixth book in the series. Let's just get to it. Now, reading of the blurb. The Deathbringer has risen. Skulduggery and Valkyrie have 7 days to uncover the Necromancer's secret before it's too late. The clock is ticking. Lord Vile is loose. And after this one, nothing will ever be the same again. Yes, so this book has a major, secret in it, and it just changes everything. And yes, the Deathbringer has risen. The Deathbringer is basically this person who is going to tear down the walls between life and death. In quoted of the Necromancer's own words, life flows into death and death through life, and the Necromancers are going to tear down the walls. And that's all that Skulduggery and Valkyrie know about this whole Deathbringer thing. We know that the previous Deathbringer was actually Lord Vile, and he was a really cruel and evil dude. He was the strongest necromancer as mentioned in the Playing with Fire video. I'll just go into more detail in the summary. Now, this book basically starts off with a journalist called Kenny. He's a mortal and he's kind of figuring out all of these weird magical things that have happened. Like the whole world, like the remnants flying around during Christmas and everything. So yeah, Valkyrie and Skulduggery go over to, kind of make him feel stupid and give up on the whole idea. Later, they find out that Kenny had actually been talking to a psychic and a sensitive who had actually looked into the future and seen this kind of necromancy thing that's happening called the Passage. Since these necromancers are looking for the Deathbringers. Deathbringers are basically people who are going to, tear down the walls between life and death. According to them, life flows into death and death into life. So they want to remove that barrier. But we don't know how. Later, Fletcher, Val and Skulduggery, all three of them go to investigate another place. But then, Jitter girls are let loose. Jitter girls are really horrible thing. They were girls who were possessed by some otherworldly spirits and now are looking for revenge all over. So yeah, these were let loose on them by a man dressed in black. The necromancers almost always dress in black. This raises Valkyrie's, Skulduggery's suspicion a lot. They manage to actually get away from these Jitter girls, but only because Valkyrie's inner alter ego called Darkness has risen. Darkness came to save her, and that's not exactly a good thing since we know that darkness is actually a really horrible thing. We also find out that the necromancers have found their Deathbringer. Turns out it's actually Melancholia St. Clair. That's a really weird thing because obviously Val, she used to actually have necromancy lessons. So that time, Melancholia wasn't exactly such a, she was more into theoretical part of it, so it's a real shock for her. Later, we also find out that Valkyrie is cheating on Fletcher with Kaelin. Kaelin was a vampire who had actually helped her to kind of try to get back Skulduggery's skull. Melancholia St. Clair, the Deathbringer, because she and Valkyrie have, been kind of enemies with each other. So later she comes over and she, attacks Valkyrie. She comes to Valkyrie's home and attacks and cuts her up into little pieces. Thankfully, Valkyrie is treated down by the sanctuary doctors, which is now 9. Since the sanctuary is now in Roarhaven, they need to hire a new doctor since Ken Specklegrouse died in the last book. Now, Skulduggery is so unimaginably angry. Hands down, he really wants to just barge into the temple and get Melancholia. Already, Skulduggery does not like necromancers for some unknown reason. But yeah, this has crossed the line. Unfortunately, all the necromancers deny that Melancholia ever did such a thing. Now, there's a siege around the temple. The sanctuary has decided to go up against the temple, the Necromancy temple, and there's all sorts of mystery that's happening in here. Like Val and Skulduggery managed to break into the temple. Unfortunately, they are caught by the high priest Tenebrae from the temple, and Tenebrae has a dark secret about Skulduggery. And yes, this secret is going to change everything. Skulduggery, he had actually had a normal death and then he came back to life. The reason for that was because he was killed by Serpine, right? So Serpine had his right hand in a messed up flesh of red color and everything, so he could give everyone a torturous and painful death. Tenebrae had to teach Serpine this skill, but he made an exception that this skill should not affect Skulduggery. That's why Skulduggery was able to come back to life in form of a skeleton. But since he woke up with necromancy, he went on to pursue necromancy and then he turned into Lord Vile. This is what has changed everything. Lord Vile, the last Deathbringer, was after all our dear own Skulduggery. Like, could you believe that? That's exactly the amount of shock that Valkyrie also gets. She's shook to her core. She just cannot believe it. Obviously, Skulduggery was kind of like her hero, or like a idol. And like turns out that he is actually Lord Vile. That's a really, really difficult thing for her to digest. This kind of puts a strain on their friendship, but slowly they kind of make up to each other and manage to work together again. And remember last time, Skulduggery was super calm when Valkyrie told her that she was actually darkness. So that's the reason why. And then they have a hilarious conversation in here about Hitler, darkness, malevolent, and about how power is so addictive. It's hilarious. You have to read it. Later, the necromancers have fled the temple. Yeah, they've all gone into hiding. But mainly, the thing of the passage now we get to know is it actually plans on killing half of the world's population to put a stop onto that cycle of life and death. That means that 3 billion people have to die so that the rest of the 3 billion can actually live. And that was the horrible plan of the whole Deathbringer thing. All of the sanctuary comes down upon the rest of the necromancers left, and they managed to kill Melancholia. It was easier than they had imagined. Later, there's a ceremony held at Gordon's house that is to actually celebrate the end of the war with Malevolent. Like, it's held every 10 years, this kind of party and everything. But over there, we find out that Melancholia is still alive, and she kills each and every person at that party. Only Skulduggery and Valkyrie manage to stay alive, and soon there's a big fight between Melancholia and Lord Vile. Skulduggery, who has actually turned into Lord Vile, is now very different. He doesn't even feel like his old self. And yeah, he's going to kill Melancholia, but for some reason, Valkyrie decides to stop the whole idea of Melancholia dying. And later, the only way to stop Vile will be for Valkyrie to turn into darkness. So yes, now darkness and Vile have a huge fight. They do manage to actually get back to their normal states, but both of them feel unimaginable amount of guilt inside of them. And yes, that's how the book 6 ends. Yes, now for the review, I am absolutely like head over heels into this book because I just love it so much. The whole plot of, Valkyrie's and Skulduggery's friendship is tested so well in this. I mean, I just, in a heartbeat, I'd give it like 10 out of 10 because it's so well written. Like the whole turning point and the twist in the story of Skulduggery and Vile. Now, Skulduggery and Valkyrie have learned to, depend on each other for their own sanity, I guess you could call it. Because Skulduggery is the one who stops her from becoming darkness, and Valkyrie is the one who kind of controls him while he's as well. So yes, it's like lovely. I just absolutely loved it. But this also has a big realization point for Val, because Valkyrie and Fletcher break up. So that time Fletcher is really angry, and then he shows her how similar she has become to Skulduggery. So cold and empathyless and kind of cruel. Valkyrie's mother was actually punched in the face by a dude. She was mugged, and yeah, Valkyrie almost tries to kill that other person. So yes, now Fletcher is definitely angry about this, and usually there'd be Ghastly who'd be around to kind of tame her in, or Tanith, but Tanith, as we know, is a remnant. Ghastly has now become an elder along with Ravel and Madam Mist from Lordhaven. Fletcher had to be the one who had tamed her down and everything, but that didn't actually work out that well, so they both broke up. I mean, this is my favorite book from the entire series. So yeah, that's it for the review, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!